I'll simply say to George, do you think it was a deserved win for the visitors today?
Yes, it was 100% deserved for Dundee United. A pretty miserable day all round for Dundee and everyone associated with Dundee, I think. Very poor in attack as soon as United scored. Really, that was pretty much it. That was my worry before the game, I have to say, because of the way Dundee have set up in the season so far. They've been pretty good defensively and held teams out, but we hadn't seen them. Well, we'd seen them go behind against Hibs, but in the last couple of games, they'd gone ahead at Ibrox and obviously drew 0-0 at Kilmarnock. It looked pretty solid, but then I had my worries as soon as a team went ahead, particularly a team like United, and in a derby game, could they manage to find a way back into it? And they just did not create anything at all. I mean, it's just not what you expect from a derby match from Dundee. Not much fight. Few ideas. Simon Murray ploughing a lone furrow up top, chasing long balls and trying to fight with three big centre backs and struggling really. It was, yeah. Stephen Pressley had built up a wee bit of not momentum, but he got some plaudits for the last couple of games, but it's certainly taken a big step back by losing this derby. And I don't think Dundee United even had to be particularly good. They just had to be better than a really, really poor Dundee team.
Yeah, I don't think anyone can argue on the other end whether Dundee United deserved the win, and there really wasn't a great deal of need for United to be at their absolute best. I think that's the one thing that, if there are any regrets from this game from a United perspective, is they could have probably won it with a little bit more ease. The nerves that are natural when a game's 1-0 could have been eased if United had exerted their dominance a little bit more. But from the moment Zach Sapsford opened the scoring, United, I think, took a philosophy of knowing that if they didn't do anything silly and they kept their shape and they were mature and professional as a team, Dundee probably wouldn't score against them.
Mm.
And that is exactly how it's turned out. The second goal kills the game as a contest and was richly deserved for Ivan Dolcek, who was superb. One of several players that deserves to be spotlighted, along with the likes of Lucas Stevenson, Pan Camara. The defensive three were all excellent. So you go through the spine of the team. It's a win that could have been more comfortable. United could perhaps have been a little bit more expansive and won it better, but it's about as comfortable as you can imagine a Dundee derby being. And that would be alarming from a Dundee perspective when you're so desperate to see fight and intensity from your side. But from a Dundee United perspective, it's absolutely ideal. They were professional, they were mature,
Yeah.
they righted this recent habit of conceding stupid goals and kept a really important clean sheet. So from their perspective, it's sort of job done. The only guy I think you can really call a hero from the United perspective, just because the narrative before the game was all about whether Zach Sapsford was of any chance of playing off the bench. Not only did he play, but he played from the starting lineup, and just over a fortnight since his ankle was flattened to a 90-degree ankle against Rapid Vienna, he's gone in the starting lineup. He's barely shown a sign of injury. He's been his usual explosive live wire self, and not only is his finish good, it's instinctive, the movement's good. Keepers should do better, but it's a nice finish. But the lift it gave the fans, his teammates, he has in a short period of time become a real talisman for Dundee United. And although you don't like to wish players like this away, there is part of me that expects
Yeah.
that Zach Sapsford will be here for a good time rather than a long time, because he's a top player. And I think that's 6 goals in 7 derbies he's got when you go back to his Western Sydney Wanderers days. So he's also a man for the big occasion, and his those other guys that you could argue would right up there for man of the match from a United perspective. But when you consider the context, how remarkable it was he was even playing, I think
Mm.
this will be for want of a better phrase, the Zach Sapsford derby.
He was too sharp for the Dundee defence. I think that's clearly in the opening goal. And yeah, I think I agree with you on this good time rather than a long time. In terms of Dundee had few heroes, if you could call them that, or guys that had good games. I thought Luke Graham again had an excellent, or had impressed anyway. Excellent, maybe pushing it just because he was the man that got beaten to the ball by Sapsford for that key first goal. But I thought over the entire game, he was one that was trying to push his team on. And for a 21-year-old defender with only a handful of Premiership appearances to his name, I think it gets more impressive by the week, I have to say. But yeah, slim pickings on the Dundee point of view.
It might be easier for you to pick the villain, George, if we were going to go through categories, because dare I say, there might be more competition in that regard in dark blue than there was in tangerine and black. Yeah,
I can't really pick out a single person. It's more the situation, I think, that Dundee find themselves in at the start of this season. Decisions that have been made a long time ago in terms of contract lengths and allowing basically an entire squad to come out of contract at the same time.
When you look at the guys that were missing from last season, guys like Mulligan and Cameron and even Tiffany and McGee, guys that made a real difference when Dundee won their last couple of derbies.
Well, I think Dundee scored 84 goals last season. I think 52 of them or something like that have gone from the team. Wow. So that shows you the difference. Simon Murray, I think there was, my maths might be wrong here, but Simon Murray scored 22, and I think the rest, all 4 guys had 1 goal. Tells you what they've lost, and I think we're seeing that come to a head at the start of this season. Stephen Pressley's obviously newly in the door, and he's a new manager. He's got a new coaching staff. He's got a whole new team he's trying to build, and we can see it's not as easy as playing Football Manager is sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think
any villains for United?
That's difficult now on impossible after a comfortable 2-0 faultless Derby win. The only slight regret, if you like, but even then I'm not sure you would call it that, it would be a collective one in the sense that, as I've alluded to, I think there was a more comfortable day at Dens Park there. There was perhaps a margin of victory that would have the supporters would have enjoyed rubbing into their rivals a little bit more. I think on another day that game could have been a 3 or 4-0 game, because although John McCracken should do better for the first goal, he also makes 2 splendid saves, one to deny Ivan Dolcek, another to deny Dario Namo. The game could have been worse if not for John McCracken's saves. So perhaps there's perhaps a tiny bit of collective villainy and not putting the boot in, but that feels like a bit of a stretch. That feels like a bit of a stretch. But
I don't think the fans particularly cared at full time, I have to say.
Me neither. So they had a good time, and they'll be really heartened by what they've seen. I believe from what I've seen in the European campaign so far, and now in a huge domestic match, the first of which that they've actually had time to really properly prepare for, that this is a squad that is capable of getting into Europe again. It's a completely different squad. It's a squad that we don't know a great deal about at this stage, and I'm well aware that we're now going into September, so it's still very, very early. But I look at the start that, for example, Aberdeen have made, and the fact they're going to be juggling European commitments. I think there's every chance there could be a gap in the top 5 there. And I think in the way this Dundee United team go about their business, if they can keep the back door shut as they did against Dundee, they've got far more going forward. They've got so much physicality, athleticism, legs. They've got goals in their team. That front 3 of Fatah, Sapsford and Dolcek, if you compare it to, with all the respect in the world, with the attacking options United had last season, I think it is a step up. So I think top 6 will be the initial aim, but at this moment in time, I've seen enough to suggest that it could be another sort of passports out job next summer.
Oh, my hot take isn't going to be that extreme. I don't think Dundee are getting the passports out next summer. But I am a hopeless optimist, and I do think they will be okay in the end. They were very bad today. They have been bad quite a few times at the start of this season already. They're very much a work in progress, but I think that work will see them okay and safe from relegation at the end of the season. I know a lot of people tipped them to go down, but I think it'll be a tough watch, but I think they'll be okay come the end. But
I tell you, George, you know it's been a bad Derby day when your hot take is they won't get relegated. That's you really know it's been a bad Derby day.
very, very low. I think, yeah, it's a sudden, after a couple of games where people are starting to think, oh, it might not be so bad, and we're making progress. It's a big slap in the face when you get beat by United so easily on your own patch. And I think there's an awareness there's a lot of work to do. So I think if we're giving it a score at 5, it would be 0, possibly.
Yeah, I don't really want to be lazy and just go for a 5 out of 5, but maybe if we can go sort of 4.75 out of 5, I think if you were going to rate the feeling among the United fans, just because I don't think the performance was perfection. One thing that should be really exciting to United fans is they've very, very comfortably won a match 2-0 against their biggest rivals away from home. And I don't think they got out of third gear in terms of what they're capable of, the speed they can move the ball, the chances they can create, the amount of bodies they can commit forward. They realised that realised what they needed to do to win the game, and they did enough. There's more to come out of that. So that's why I'd be reluctant to give it a perfect score, because I don't think it was the perfect performance. I think there's quite a bit more to come from this United team. But when you look at those scenes in the away end, absolute carnage in the away end. The fans had an incredible time. After 2 Derby defeats, it was particularly imperative that they got that victory and got that monkey off their back. So that makes it important. It's also important for Jim Goodwin, because you don't want these things to become narratives. You know, this social media landscape loves easy narratives, and Jim Goodwin loses derbies could have become one of those. And so he's comfortably won a big derby when he really needed to. And with what the fans have seen from the games against Rapid Vienna, from some of the domestic football in flashes to this point, I think there's real positivity about the place, real positivity that they've done good business and that they could be ready to kick on this season. So it does feel slightly different in tone when you compare the two sides of the road just at the moment.
Yeah, I think Dundee fans might be, the one positive thing is they don't have to watch their team for a couple of weeks. I think that maybe